reviewing the Nissan Leaf. Although to be fair, it's not so much that we're reviewing the car, we really just want to give a good idea of what it's like to live with a vehicle like this. And for starters, they're not kidding when they talk about range anxiety. I am not an ideal candidate for a car like this. Most experts will tell you that the average commuter drives 30 miles round trip. I travel 40 miles each way from my home in the suburbs all the way to the AutoGuide offices. So I really wanted to see, can a car like this work for me? And the answer is it can, but it's not easy. For starters, let's talk about charging the car. Now, Nissan will tell you that it takes about 7 hours with a conventional 240 volt outlet. The problem is 240 isn't conventional, this is, and this is a 120 volt. And they gave us this little box and a sort of a trickle charger system, which is not ideal. And with this, it takes a shocking 20 hours from zero charge. Now, the good news is that car's not always at zero battery life, so it takes less. I found overnight I could get a full charge in about 14 hours. Now, the other system, they will sell you a charger. It's about $2,000 for an install, and anybody buying a Leaf is going to definitely want to get that. Charging with a 120 volt outlet or even a more powerful 240 volt outlet, you're going to want to use the plug on the right side right here. You just snap it in and it's very simple. Now, Nissan will also offer this extra quick charge port, which is only available if you get the top trim level. And as you can see, it certainly looks more heavy duty. And that will actually supply as much as an 80% charge in just 30 minutes. As though being an electric car wasn't interesting enough, this car comes with the CarWings telematics system. Now, what that is there's some screens on here you want to check out. When you hit the menu button, you can go to destination, and it will actually, on the nav system, tell you if you can reach the destination you have planned out with the amount of electricity you have left in the car, which is very interesting. On top of that, if you start to run out, you can hit nearby charging stations, you can search from your current location, and it will actually tell you the closest ones. Also included is the CarWings app for your smartphone, and as you can see here, it will actually tell you what state of charge your car is at, and that's just not useful if you're here, but if you're away from the car. The other day I had it at a charging station and I was in the office. I was able to tell when it was fully charged, and then I can go back and retrieve the car, which is great. It'll also do a couple of other things. You can actually set the car to charge at a certain time, so if you want to get it at off-peak hours, and you can even start the climate control going so you can heat the car up about 15 minutes before you get to it. And it says we've got about 90 miles of range here, although interestingly the car says we've got closer to about 100 miles, which is good. So we're traveling back to Nissan today to drop this car off, and it's about 55 miles, so it shouldn't be an issue. So we've only been on the road now for about 10 miles, but already the gauges on the dash here are telling me that we're about 30 miles down in terms of range. Initially, my range anxiety with the car was pretty severe. I actually drove the whole way home without the climate control on because I was so worried that I wouldn't make it. So I was freezing in the car, just watching every mile to make sure I got home. So along with that very lengthy 14-hour charge at my house, I was lucky to find a quick charge station near my office. So that meant that I could charge it for 7 hours basically during the time while I was at work that day and leave no problem. Now, if I hadn't found one of those, I would have to stay at the office for an additional 14 hours. Now, if you're somebody who lives a lot closer to their office, doesn't have nearly as long a commute, the Leaf would really be ideal because you could go to and from the office without using up the entire charge. You'd never have to plug it in at your destination, and you could just plug it in every night when you get home. Now, chances are anybody who is buying a Leaf is not really interested in horsepower. However, you still want to have a car that is a usable vehicle that can get you up to speed fairly well, and the Leaf surprisingly does a really good job at that. It's rated at just 107 horsepower, but it makes 207 pound-feet of torque, and it's actually pretty quick. If you put your foot down, it's got great acceleration, and it'll get you up to speed. Nissan claims that it's sort of equivalent to a V6 engine, and while that might be a bit of a stretch, especially off the line, the electric torque that's really immediate is great, and it's responsive, and there's no complaints. Now, it's a bit strange to talk about fuel economy in an electric car, and even weirder when you mention miles per gallon. But the EPA has come out with an MPGe rating, which is miles per gallon equivalency. And this car is rated at an average of 99 MPGe. And that's roughly double that of a Toyota Prius, which is very impressive. It gets a rating of 106 miles per gallon in the city and 92 on the highway, which is very much the opposite of a conventional gasoline engine. So the Leaf is actually better in the city, as we've experienced, and not quite as good out on the highway. So the Nissan Leaf is obviously not a car for a commuter like me, but I have to admit to being seriously impressed by the reality of this vehicle and the fact that it actually managed to get me to and from the office every day, although not without a good bit of range anxiety, something that, well, it gets better, never really goes away. One way to look at the Leaf is that it's essentially a 100 mile per gallon car, but it only holds 1 gallon of fuel. And to make matters worse, it could take up to 20 hours to get that 1 gallon of fuel into the vehicle. Now, the one issue that we haven't talked about is the vehicle's price. Now, at $37,000, it's actually not bad, and add in a $7,500 tax rebate, and we're talking about coming in under the $30K mark. Now, that's very impressive and certainly not going to scare anybody off. But there's more to the equation than that. We're talking about the cost to operate it all the time. Now, Nissan will tell you that it's practically nothing. I mean, it's only $2.75 to fully fill the electric battery. Now, again, that doesn't sound like much, but add that up. For somebody like me who depletes the battery twice a day, that's $5.50 in electricity. I could probably do the range in a Prius for well under 10 bucks, maybe $7 or $8. And so the difference between the two isn't all that significant. And this is something that nobody else seems to be talking about. And so that really might be the biggest hindrance towards mainstream acceptance of electric cars.